Hey guys, how's it going? So for Sundays, haven't been really doing anything. Tried Instagram, but I just didn't feel like that was really working out, and because a lot of y'all like to sleep in, which no blame there. But I decided that the best way to continue to connect with y'all and something that for y'all to watch maybe, um, and continue to go through the Bible instead of just joining in our Zoom meetings. If you can't make it, uh, it's good to have another resource. And so I'm going to start putting videos up on YouTube in this playlist. Um, every Sunday, you're going to see another video going. And instead of kind of changing what we were doing, I'm going to switch what we had been doing on Wednesday nights to our videos on Sunday. So that means we're going to be going through this book still, the nine common lies Christians believe by Shane Pruitt. Um, it's been really good. I've been really looking forward to it, and I felt like we needed to keep going through it. And it stinks that we can't sit there and discuss the book and the chapters, but at least this way, y'all can still hear what the book has to say. And of course, if you have any questions of anything I say, uh, text me, ask me on our Zoom meetings on Wednesday nights. Um, but yeah, just get in contact with me if you have any questions about anything. Still, I'm always here for y'all. So with that said, let's get into it. So the last two chapters we had done were really good, and y'all had a lot of good things to say. Um, this third chapter is really good as well. I really like the points that he makes, and so this week's is God just wants me to be happy. That's the third common lie that Shane talks about in the book. Um, there's a lot of different definitions of the word happy and kind of what people think when they say, I just want to be happy, or are you happy, or they ask anybody, or they think about happiness in general. Some people put it to having a close relationship with another person, whether that be a friend or a significant other. Other people put that in kind of a general sense of the word love, kind of when you think about, like the '60s or the '70s, like the free love movement or something like that. Like just love people, man. Um, Other people think of love. They think of love to um, things, and it can be, oh, I love pizza, or I love sports, or I love anything. Just think about anything. But the one that Shane's talking about with this, with happy, is not necessarily love. It's more of a sense of completeness and peace. Um, and so with happiness that is biblical, and that it's talked about several places, is that God doesn't necessarily want us to be happy. Yes, God care about your happiness? Yes, God does care about your happiness. But the thing that God desires more from you is that you are at peace and you have joy. And that's an important thing to have as a Christian. And it's joy is is a fruit of the spirit. If you want to do the song in your head, do the song in your head. Um, but yeah, and the thing is that when we think about happiness in a worldly sense, of what most people think of when they think happiness, that changes. Like a lot of people's happiness changes based on their circumstances or kind of what's going on around them. And it's not that that's a bad thing. It's just that that's not necessarily what Christ talks about and what several other authors talk about in the Bible. They talk about joy, and so you might be asking, Jake, what's the difference between joy and happiness? Well, happiness is a circumstance thing. It's kind of depending on what stage we're in or what's going on in our lives. So, like for example, in high school, I was in a short relationship, and the girl I was dating broke up with me. I was not happy. Like I was pretty down in the dumps the rest of the year, just because that kind of caused a lot of different things to happen throughout the year. It was a domino effect, and it all started with that. And so I don't look at my freshman year of high school fondly because I don't remember being happy. Um, a lot of y'all have different examples going on in your life, whatever it is. Just think about it. Something bad happens or something good happens, like uh, if you are on a sports team and you miss the game-winning shot or something like that, that can make you pretty sad. Like you can get mad, you can get frustrated yourself, but if you make it, it's like this unrelenting feeling of happiness. You're just so excited, you're happy. It's a good day, like the rest of the day. Um, that's what I'm talking about. Is that happiness is very circumstantial, um, and that's not always the right way to be living your life, right? Like just going based on whatever circumstance life brings at you. That's not the best way to be going throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout your life. Just saying, "Oh, I'm not happy today because I just didn't wake up in a good mood." And the rest of the day is you're not in a good mood, you didn't get enough sleep, whatever it is, you're tired because you had a lot of homework. Put in whatever thing you can think of. It's that's a terrible way to live life. But the Bible and Christ says, think about, instead of, our life is not to be lived as circumstances. We're supposed to be in kind of a state, if that makes sense. And I'd want to be careful how I talk about this because I can get a little funky. But instead of happiness, the Bible talks about being joyful. And, you can be sad, but still be filled with joy. And that might be a little bit confusing. But let me read what Shane says in chapter 3. Um, he talks about how, how what joy is and what that looks like. And if you have the book or if you ever buy it, this is on page 57 near the top. Shane says, God desires that you and I experience joy, that settled state of contentment, confidence, and hope that comes only from trusting Him, that is God. Sadly, though, we often miss it because we're too busy chasing happiness. The truth is, God has a whole lot to say in His Word about this great gift of joy. Um, and he goes on to have a bunch of different points, and they're all really, really good. But I want to save that because I would love for y'all to read the book, and I have a few copies of it in my office waiting. If you want it, I'll get you one. Just let me know. But one of the main points I really, really like, um, is talking about those circumstances, about how we chase happiness. And I really like that he said that. Our lives, a lot, we think about what is the point of our life besides being a Christian. We think, okay, yeah, it's important to tell other people about Jesus, live the way Christ wants me to, and how through his example, live based off of that and what God has for me. But at the same time, we still want to be happy. Like we still want these things to be accomplished in our life. Like I have things I that I want in my life personally, but just because I don't have those right now doesn't mean I can't be filled with joy still. Doesn't mean I can't be happy. And that's what Shane is getting at. And he gets that from several different places. And you can look at Matthew 28, verse 20 is a really good example of that. Hebrews 13:5 is another really good example of that as well. Um, both, one is an example of Matthew writing about Jesus and talking about how that's 28:20 is him specifically leaving and telling his disciples, "Listen, I will always be with you," and that should fill us with joy. Like as a Christian, if you have become a born again believer in Christ, then it should be so overwhelming that we don't even really care about what circumstance of life we're in. We should be overcome with a contentment, with joy, with a state of being fulfilled in Christ. And that's where that joy comes from. And so you can look at a lot of different places in the Bible and you can just see the examples of joy. Like, how do you think Paul, for example, was able to be arrested, you know, several times and wait in prison forever? Uh, what it seems like to him, and through reading the Bible, like all his letters were written from prison. He was waiting and waiting, waiting for his death. And while those letters he wrote to the churches might have been kind of like him answering questions, in almost every single one of those letters, he has a few verses that say, "I count it all joy," or to tell the church, "Count it all as joy." You know, it's important not to live our life chasing moments. And that you can take that in many different ways, but it's important to live our lives in a state of being fulfilled. And you can't do that if you're just chasing moments. Um, and so, and you might be asking, Jake, how do I stop? How do I stop living moment to moment? Well, it's understanding that our life is not about us. And we've talked about it several times, but our lives are not about us. Our lives are about living an example for Christ. And that's it. Like and with that can come a lot of challenging things. But at the same time, through all of those challenging things, through all those things that may get us down in moments, it's important to remember the constant peace and fulfillment we can have in Christ and how much joy that can bring us. Um, and so, I really like this chapter that Shane wrote about, you know, does God want you to be happy? Yeah, God wants you to be happy, but God cares more about you having your life placed in Him and about how you're living that out. So, with that, I hope everyone is doing all right during this tough time. Um, and it can be hard to remain joyful in all of this with not being able to come out of our houses or whatever it is. It's hard to stay joyful. And something that I constantly remind myself is, I have the opportunity every day to understand what Christ did for me and all the things that he bore on the cross. And the time I'm recording this, it's the Thursday before Easter, and we're about to celebrate a big holiday that is all about a lot of different things, but mainly it's about Christ's resurrection. And I don't know what could bring me more joy than that. I'll be reaching out to you guys, continuing to do Zoom meetings. If you want to join in on those, um, just I'll text out reminders of that. I miss you guys. Love you guys. Um, See y'all later.